Hi, if you're new to the channel, my name is Tay from Financial Tortoise, where we learn to grow our wealth slow and steady. Number 1. Stop taking money advice from wrong people. The world is in no short supply of financial advice. Turn on any TV, go to any bookstore, or even YouTube. It seems like anyone and everyone is giving money advice these days. How do we filter out the good ones from the bad ones? It's hard to do so. So what we usually default to are so-called trusted sources like financial news and financial publications. They must have really smart people researching the market and providing unbiased advice to you and I so we can get better with our money, right? Well, not quite so. What we don't see on surface is that many of these publications and financial news media are actually Wall Street's billion-dollar marketing machines. Wall Street makes money when there are continual trading activities. More people buy and sell financial products, more money Wall Street and big banks make. So in order to stimulate more and more trading activities, what these banks will do is feed millions of dollars to financial media and publications. The financial media and Wall Street have a very tight-knit, symbiotic relationship. The financial media wants readers, viewers, and listeners because that way they can get more advertising dollars from Wall Street. So how do they get more readers and viewers? They write sensational, eye-catching content. Best performing mutual fund this month. Best stocks to buy now. Best trading platforms this year. And Wall Street is more than happy to pay advertising dollars because it drives more customers to stimulate more trading activities. With the help of the financial media, Wall Street has been very successful at getting individual investors to chase after last year's winning funds and market time. And this even goes the other way. They even use doom and gloom forecasters to play on investor fears and getting them to buy safer securities. Wall Street wins either way. So be careful where you get your financial information from. Today, the problem isn't lack of information, it is too much information. And it's hard to filter out what is good information versus bad information. So practice good judgment where you give your attention to. Wise, sound advice can make you millions, but bad advice can cost you millions. Number 2, stop making money way more important than it is. We naturally believe that more money will make us happier, relieve all of our life problems. Only if we can make $300,000, $400,000, or even $500,000 a year. But do you know what research says? Analysis of global survey found that individuals feel happiest day to day when they make somewhere between $60,000 to $75,000. And they feel best about their lives overall when they make around $95,000. Compared to the global average, $95,000 is a lot of money. But for many individuals living in the States, it may not seem like as much as we initially thought. But the truth is that money just isn't as important as many of us make it out to be. Yes, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, having more money will make life easier. But once you've provided for your basic necessities, accumulating more money doesn't make that much of a difference. Actually, it could create new issues if you aren't careful. You fall into a trap of wanting to enjoy nicer things in life, such as a better car, fancier restaurants, and other luxury goods. And before you know it, you fall into a hamster wheel of social comparison. Instead of focusing on living your life, you'll become attached to your lavish lifestyle, and the thought of not having enough or losing what you have will stress you out even more. Who hasn't heard of ridiculously rich individuals struggling with mental health issues? The bottom line is don't make money more important than it is. Pay attention to it, give it respect and appreciate it, but don't get so obsessed with it that you wind up spending your whole life chasing after it. Number 3. Stop taking on too much student debt. In 2009, after 6 amazing years in the US Army, I decided to transition to the civilian world. It was an amazing experience, but I wanted to see what else the world had to offer. So I enrolled in an MBA program at UCLA. I definitely learned tons about the business world from my MBA education, and it helped me to transition successfully to the corporate world. But one thing I wasn't very smart about was how I funded it. The program was quite expensive, and I came out with $87,000 in student loans afterwards. The gravity of the amount didn't really hit me until I started paying it down with my wife after we got married. Education is important, and we all understand this timeless principle. However, not all education is the same. It is important to think hard about the value of the education that you're willing to pay for. If you have kids that are about to enter college and they're looking at an expensive private college because they have a beautiful campus and offer a 5-course meal as student dining, ask yourself, is it worth a $50,000 price tag? Oftentimes, there are many great state-funded schools that can provide just as good or even better education than what these private colleges can provide. Both my wife and I are proud products of our state's higher education system, the University of California and the California State University system. And when it comes to paying for higher education, if you're willing to do the homework, there are so many different ways to offset the cost. I was able to get my undergraduate paid for through the Army ROTC program. Though I owe the military 4 years afterwards, if you want to serve your country and get paid to do it at the same time, the ROTC program is a great option. My wife was also able to get a master's in nurse practitioner paid for by her employer. She did owe 3 additional years working at the hospital afterwards, but she was able to get a $50,000 education completely paid for. And when it came to my MBA, I had much smarter classmates who seeked employers who were willing to pay down their student debt as part of their signing bonus. Excessive student debt, I can tell you from personal experience, can take a terrible toll. We have to delay purchasing a home or starting a family. We can't invest in our retirement. We can't take healthy risks in our career because we're financially vulnerable. Don't put yourself in this position. Be wise and think twice before you take on too much student debt. Number 4. Stop sacrificing your retirement so your kids can graduate college debt-free. I just mentioned how you shouldn't take on too much student loans. And if you're older with older kids, you might feel the pang of guilt around allowing your child to be saddled with student debt. So as a good parent, you might feel the need to sacrifice your own retirement so your child can graduate college debt-free. Yes, you should try to keep your child from borrowing too much for college, especially if they plan on entering a low-paying profession. But the reality is that they'll have more time to pay off that debt than you do. They'll be entering the workforce in their early 20s with more than 40 years of work ahead of them. If you're in your 40s and your 50s with less than a few decades left in your career, retirement should actually be your top financial priority. Talk to your kids about college, what schools they want to attend, how to best pay for it, and what are the trade-offs for different options. As mentioned earlier, there are so many different creative ways to pay for college if we put in the work. Nothing is free, but it sure beats being saddled with hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt. And this is just my personal take, but when it comes to financing college costs, it's good to have the kids have some skin in the game. I don't want my kids to think that mom and dad will give them a fully funded education on a silver platter. Number 5, stop investing in financial products you don't understand. It's often said that financial products are sold, not bought. That means that there's a salesperson behind the transaction, pushing an investment or insurance policy that we didn't go looking for, or more importantly, do not understand. There could be a legitimate place for some of these financial products, but most often they're overpriced and their benefits are not as great as presented. Often the greatest benefit is the commission paid to the broker. My general rule of thumb is that the less you understand about a financial product, the more it's going to cost you. So unless you understand it, don't buy it. Or if you're curious, ask more questions. Do your research. Don't just take what you hear or read at face value. Most financial products I talk about in this channel, I believe, are pretty decent and simple to understand. However, everyone's situation is different. So even with my recommendation, do your research. Validate and understand it thoroughly before pulling the trigger. Don't just blindly listen to some random guy on YouTube just because of his amazing hairline. Number 6, stop taking risky bets. There is a behavioral finance term called recency bias. We overemphasize the most recent event and subconsciously project it towards the future. In the late 2000s, everyone thought that the housing market would continue to rise because they saw it rise the past several years. People thought they could bank on this rise and would buy homes, refinance when the price rose, and buy more homes with the proceeds. But as history has shown, nothing in life stays same indefinitely. Many superpowers of the past, the Romans, the Mongolians, the British Empire, all seemed invincible in their days. However, with time, they all either crumbled or lost their influence. To make wise financial decisions, we must look beyond the recent patterns and consider that the future could be very different from today. I mean, who could have predicted COVID to have had the impact that it did? Or inflation to go as high as it did the past couple years? The key is to make sure that you don't stake your financial future on the success or failure of a single crazy bet. After having watched the market constantly and reading countless articles from so-called financial professionals, you might feel tempted to jump in on the latest tip to get a piece of the action. However, practice prudence. The best path forward with investing is oftentimes simple and slow, accepting only as much risk as necessary to reach your financial goals and sticking with your investing plans through both ups and downs of the market. And that is why for individual investors like you and I firmly believe that low-cost, broad market index funds provide the best investing option. Number 7. Stop trying to time the market. When I talk to people about the economy, market timing is probably one of the most common statements people make without even realizing they're doing it. And I'm embarrassed to admit, also a major culprit. We say statements like the market is up right now, so I'm going to wait until it dies down before I buy. My XYZ stock is down right now, but it should jump back up again soon. And when we point out that they're timing the market, they often acknowledge that timing is not a smart move. But they also present all sorts of reasons why it makes sense in their specific situation. The bottom line is that if we're waiting to buy or sell until some point in the future, then we're timing the market. I get into this wrinkle constantly. Though we have set up automatic investment on a regular basis, at times, I can't help myself but look at the market and consider the idea of delaying the purchase or making it sooner because I think the market is either overvalued or undervalued. Then my wife, who is much wiser than I, would need to kick some sense into me. Experts have long cautioned against trying to time the market. Financial journalist Jane Brian Quinn observed, "The Market Timers Hall of Fame is an empty room." The sobering truth is that nobody is smarter than the market. When we try to time the market, we're making investment decisions based on emotion, not logic. Be okay being lazy when it comes to investing. This is a hard pill to swallow, especially for smart individuals that have achieved much professional success through hard work and smart decision making. But when it comes to investing, the only smart decision you need to make is set up your low-cost index fund once and forget about it. The Nobel Prize-winning economist Richard Taylor said this: "His lazy strategy of doing very little, buying mostly stocks and then not paying attention has served him very well." I feel that if it worked for him, it will work for us too. Number 8. Stop buying a home when you should rent. Renting gets a bad rep when it comes to wealth building. We think if we rent, we're throwing money away. However, we don't want to think this way. You aren't throwing money away, you're actually buying flexibility. Every rent check that you write buys you the freedom to pursue opportunities or the ability to adjust to unforeseen setbacks. Yes, renting is not as sexy as buying. It doesn't align with the notion of buying a piece of the American dream. But if your goal is a secure financial future, then renting could actually be a smarter move a lot of times. For example, let's say that you just moved to a new city because of a new job opportunity. The initial pull might be that you should buy a new home to go along with your nice new job. However, how do you know if you'll remain in that city for the long run? What happens if you find that you dislike the company or the city? If you locked yourself into a sizable mortgage, you could be taking a loss if you try to sell your home within a small time frame. The transaction cost, the state of the real estate market, and the energy required to sell a home all needs to be considered. When you're renting, you have a lot more flexibility. You could be paying a penalty if you break your lease earlier than anticipated, but compared to the transaction cost of selling a home, it's a fraction of the cost. Number 9. Stop failing to protect your identity. The fact is that most people ignore identity theft. We just have so much going on in our lives to spend thinking about another worry. However, not considering can cause us quite a bit of headache in the long run. Few tips to help you protect your identity online. 1. Be careful not to overshare on social media. Don't share that you're leaving for a 10-day vacation to Thailand. Thieves are scouring social media and are monitoring when you're away from your home. 2. Warn people around you. Your aging parents, your grandparents, and your kids. They're the easiest targets and scammers know it. 3. Use two-factor authentication. This could add 30 additional seconds to your login process, but they're worth it. These days, even the best passwords aren't enough. 4. Don't use public Wi-Fi. Do I need to say more? And 5. Regularly check your account. Check for any suspicious transactions. Check your credit score often to make sure that no one recently took out a car loan in your name. Bottom line, be careful and be hyper-aware. Some of these could take extra time in your busy schedule, but trust me, they're far less time than you would spend cleaning up the mess if you've been scammed. Number 10. Stop ignoring your aging parents. You might be a superstar when it comes to all the items that we talked about so far. You don't obsess over financial news, have no student debt, don't take unnecessary risks, and protect your identity like your life depends on it. However, this one can get you if you don't at least consider it. I know we don't like to think about our aging parents more than we like to think about ourselves dying or our home crumbling under an earthquake. Thus, we fail to discuss with our parents their needs and desire and plan for the future. But before we know it, the future arrives and we suffer unnecessary financial and emotional pain because we're scrambling to figure out a solution on the fly. I saw this way too closely when my wife's grandmother was going through her final stages of her life. She was over 90 years old, yet there wasn't a plan for who, what, and how things were going to be handled if something was to happen to her. Everyone in the family was just hoping that the time would come later than sooner. But the time came sooner than everyone realized when she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and her health took a dive. My responsibility was primarily just a driver for my wife and her grandmother, but I saw firsthand how lack of preparation brought so much financial and emotional tension to the family. There wasn't a healthcare directive to guide the family towards her wishes. People couldn't agree on where to house her during the final stages of life. There wasn't a plan for what would happen to her assets afterwards. Afterwards, my wife and I vowed that we would never want to repeat the experience with our own parents if we could help it. And I agree that no amount of planning and discussion can free us entirely from the burden of caring for our aging parents. Because to be honest, when we study and analyze all our options, we'll likely find that there isn't the best one. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't plan, because planning at least allows us to gain some semblance of control of an inherently emotional and unpredictable situation. We may not like our options, but if we plan, we at least will understand them in advance. Thank you guys for watching, and in the spirit of uncomfortable situations, if you'd like to learn more about how to navigate uncertainty with confidence, please check out my video here. Until next time, all the best.